Hospital workers of Reddit. What was the dumbest thing you saw a patient do immediately after leaving? When I was a nursing student, I did a rotation on a transitional care unit in my first year of school where people go to wait for a nursing home placement. Had an older man as a client who did not have any cognitive impairment complain about abrasions on his penis. Okay, all is well, and I call for a doctor to look at it to get some antibiotic ointment for it. The doctor can't come up to our floor for another few hours. I tell the patient this and leave to go do something else. About half an hour later it's time to go take his blood sugar, and guess what I find the man doing? Jerking off in plain sight, and his hand and penis are bloody and raw. I literally had to have a conversation with a man my grandfather's age and have to tell him not to masturbate while the abrasions are healing and to take it easier once it was healed. Talk about burning the bloody rubber. That dude really loves his egg roll. I work in medical imaging where patients have to drink oral contrast for their exam. Some folks really hate the stuff, and one patient, after being given the oral contrast, went outside and dumped it in the bushes and came back in and said that they had drank it. Our front desk lady actually saw her dump it in the bushes and told us about it, but we would have seen the lack of contrast in the image even if she hadn't told us. I talked to the patient and was like, we can see inside of you. We can tell if you drank it or not. What did she think it was for? A refreshment? No. Some patients think that parts of procedures are arbitrary and they can just decide for themselves and it won't matter. I perform another exam where the patients have to be fasting for 6 hours before their exam. The exam looks at the metabolism of sugar in the body, and the patients cannot eat any sugar within the 6 hours prior or it'll ruin the test. I cannot count how many times prior to the exam I asked the patient and was told that they hadn't eaten or drank anything but water since last night, but the images don't lie, and when the exam is ruined the patients usually fess up and say things like, I just ate some candy. I didn't think it would matter, or what did you expect for me to do? I was hungry, or I didn't eat anything. I just drank a soda. That shouldn't count. It's 6 hours, people. You can go 6 hours without sugar. They inevitably have to come back for a rescue, and they're usually angry at us for it, like it's my fault that they didn't follow the very detailed prep that we give them. I've heard horror stories about kids being NPO before a surgery and the parents thinking that was too harsh and feeding them before going to the hospital. Those are way worse for anyone reading this. If you are having surgery and have food you can vomit and inhale it during surgery. Not worth dying for some breakfast. Oh, no buddy. You need your strength during surgery. Kramer to George. Seinfeld. A junior mint. They are very refreshing. I work for a medical device company that makes bone screws. We had a patient sue us for faulty implants. Apparently his screws broke less than a month after surgery. This is a big deal, and not just from a financial standpoint. So of course we launched a full investigation. Turns out the dumbass decided to play tackle football less than a month after his major back surgery. Our bone screws are strong, but not tackle football strong. His case was thrown out. Oh boy, this reminds me of a story I heard on my neurology rotation in vet school. They did a surgery on a Doberman for wobbler's neck instability. Dog came back a week after surgery quadriplegic. The owners let it play in the backyard with its brother, and he got tackled. The dog never walked again. I couldn't believe the owners were so stupid to spend $6,000 on a surgery for a dog and not follow through with the recovery instructions. I've had multiple surgeries. Every doctor and physio from the day I was injured has been amazed that I actually follow their instructions properly. Like truly amazed. Give some insight as to how many people don't, even when it's literally your ability to walk and function on the line. Hey, so while your catheter is in you can take this pill to stop bladder spasms. For the love of God, do not take this pill within 24 hours of having your catheter removed, or you will not be able to pee after, and the catheter will have to go back in for another week. I'd say maybe 50% follow this instruction. You'd think men would do anything to reduce the number of times they have a tube pushed up their urethra. but you'd be wrong. So, I don't have a source, but I learned this in college in my counseling class for hearing aids. My prof told us that patients will remember 50% of the information we give them, but from that they will only remember 50% of that correctly. So this makes sense. Edit. I found a source. Exclamation mark. PO2. 00000. This source says that 40-80% of info presented by medical practitioners is forgotten immediately, and from that 50% of that info is remembered incorrectly. The TL. Doctor is that people just aren't going to remember everything that is said, no matter how compliant the patient is, and how well we present the information. We need to keep this in mind when presenting the information. Keep the lingo at bay, and stress the importance of the information. Keep the patient's age in mind when presenting information, and give stuff in writing. The less info we can give, the better. Discharged a patient after hysterectomy, removing uterus, stitches at top of vagina, and she went home and had sex, busting her stitches and allowing for her bowel to protrude through the vagina. Had to have an emergency procedure to fix it. And that's enough of this thread. It's the Jolly Rancher comment of the thread. Is that better or worse than the poop knife of the thread? Broken arms? Coconut? Definitely worse than the poop knife. Probably a little worse than the coconut. Not after leaving, but this older gentleman had his wife bring him in and out the literal day after his open heart surgery. I couldn't believe it. Edit. Oh, and for clarity, the surgery was a heart bypass for clogged arteries. Yo, I used to be a live sound engineer for a living. I was working at this one venue, and this band had their own sound engineer. I still had to do everything as far as micing up the stage and wiring everything, because he said he is supposed to take it easy after his bypass surgery. He even showed my they scar. Not that I asked or questioned him. Anyway, after I do the entire sound check for him, he flags down a server and orders 4 shots of tequila and an order of cheese curds. Server laughed thinking he was joking, and he is just like, no, I'm serious. Can't plug in a mic cause of his heart surgery by deep fried cheese, and tequila is fine apparently. He got so drunk he could barely walk. His son drove him home. If it involved heavy lifting / using the arms, he shouldn't have been doing it, as it could seriously harm his healing in the short term. A SPT diet and alcohol, while not good for the heart, would not have as immediate severe consequences. Wiring up a mic is less physical work than getting dressed. If he can pull his pants up, he can plug in a mic cable. This wasn't like a festival where we had to load in and out a stage in PA. It was a venue. Just needed to wire the stage stars all. Now retired, but one of the things I liked about my hospital was the food. We have a lot of immigrants in our area, and some wise person decided to hire a pretty diverse crowd of cooks. Jamaican ladies making spicy chicken, Japanese cooks making sushi, Mexican dudes making made-to-order burritos, local barbecue, etc. And it was all very clean from a nutritional viewpoint. All of it was inspected by our RDs. And just about every day I would see patients turn down this excellent food and have their families bring them crap from fast food joints in town. Edit. Well, this caught fire while I was asleep. Yes, the food was good. The barbecue vendor also offered fried chicken. But the reason I retired a year early is because that hospital was being absorbed into a large healthcare corporation, and we all know that never benefits anyone but the suits. From what my former coworkers tell me, that cafeteria now offers the finest food service, meals delivered daily in refrigerator trucks and served fresh from the microwave. Hiring cooks who needed / wanted a job is probably not part of the corporate profit plan. Being in a hospital is strange and fast food is familiar. You had me at jerk chicken though. I feel like I'm that person. When I was 15 I broke my arm. Went to the hospital, got a cast, went about for a few weeks, and got it removed. Great. I have my arm back. Now I wasn't the brightest kid, and needed everything explained to me. No one told me not to have an arm wrestle with my fresh out of cast arm. No one explained it was still healing. 4 hours after having my cast removed I was back in R&D, and getting a new x-ray, and then a new cast put on by the same nurse, who just took it off. I have never seen such disappointment in the eyes of someone who wasn't my mother. Your last sentence is priceless. Countless COPD/asthmatics coming in for wheezing, sob, rapid breathing. We treat them, and the second they feel better they will state, "I forgot something in my car," only to leave and light up a cig. A lady came to our ER for tachycardia and anxiety. The triage nurse, on a hunch, asked what she'd eaten that day and if she'd had any coffee. I haven't had time to eat this now being mid-afternoon, and only 4 or 5 cups of coffee. Genuinely clueless. Not a hospital worker, but I was in the emergency room due to a sports-related injury. Finally got let out after hours of x-rays and examinations as I was learning how to use crutches and watched someone with stitches on his arm start stretching like he was going to run all the way home. He turned around, walked towards the desk, and yelled, "Your nurse is asleep." After the cut on his arm reopened mid-stretch. The woman at the desk looked so tired. Somebody lit up a cigarette in a no smoking area with a nasal cannula on and lit their face on fire. Had to come right back into the ER. So many smokers with cannula OMG. Always outside the main entrance puffing away beside their O2 tank. Jesus take the wheel. I saw someone pull his newly slung arm out of its sling so he could put his jacket on as he was leaving the ER. He just stopped in front of my desk and started whimpering and yelling "ow" as he slowly worked his arm around to get it out of the sling and into the sleeve of his jacket. I'm pretty sure it wasn't very cold outside at the time. I plead for him to stop, but he ignored me. It was really bizarre. My shoulder hurts just reading this.